Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How you doing?
Doing fine. I'm not in any crisis whatsoever.
Yeah, can we check you marked safe on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although I like to keep the mystery alive, so maybe don't get too ahead. I don't like people knowing where I am at all times of the day.
I understand.
No, since we are about to cover 4.5 or 3.5 hours of TV, how many hours of TV are we covering?
Yeah, 3.5.
3.5. We have backup, of course. We have reoccurring SNN Nerd guest host, Tasha.
Hi.
Hi, Tasha. And we also have another reoccurring guest host, Miss Veronica Rose is here too.
Hey, y'all.
And we are so lively and energetic because we're so worried about over talking one another.
Right? We don't get to have the talking stick.
Yeah.
We're just overwhelmed from still catching our breaths from the event
and by event you clearly are referring to Stargirl trailer, correct?
That's right. I am talking about Stargirl trailer. What'd you think about it?
Why is Luke Wilson in that trailer?
Because it's funny. So apparently Jeff Johns, who is the executive producer of the show, actually wrote that part with Luke Wilson in mind. So Stargirl I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with it, but for our listeners, it's obviously a DC property. It's teenage girl who basically stumbles upon her stepfather's Justice Society partners hero gear and becomes a superhero herself. And so I guess this new show is going to be on both the CW and also DC Universe. I think it airs first on DC Universe and then airs on the CW as part of their expanding television empire. But but that's the sort of basic storyline behind it. And I guess Jeff Johns also like based the character off his late sister. So
yeah. I don't know if I'm having superhero fatigue or if I'm just kind of over the white girl superhero thing. That it did not do anything for me watching that trailer, like at all. Right. I mean, y'all know how I'm, really big on we need more people of color to start starring in these shows, and it's just another, suburban white girl that gets to have special powers. I'm just next.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty much. I didn't dislike the trailer, but there was nothing so epic that jumped out at me that I was like, yes, I really have to watch this. Like, if they're going to do Green Arrow and the Canaries and Supergirl and Batwoman, we already have so many. They could have come up with something a little bit more unique and original for another superhero. There are so many out there, and you're right, more representation, more people of color, that would have been a superior option to what we're getting.
Right.
Exactly.
I think we're also old, and I mean, I look at that show and I'm thinking to myself, maybe 10 years ago, I would have been, oh, cool, a new something new and a story told. But at this point, I'm thinking and I'm comparing her to all the current lineup. And you're right about the color. And it's a white girl who essentially gets a magic stick. I've been wanting to say that for at least a full bit. But really, it's also her age. She's the first one in this lineup I mean, if you don't count Lightning on Black Lightning, but who's going to be a high schooler in who's also a superhero. So you're going to get that play, and I already have Peter Parker, so I don't know if I need another version of that. So I think I'm with you, Veronica, where I'm probably at the point of way too many superheroes currently dominating my TV screen at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree that it is very, very populated universe right now. A lot of shows on. I was putting together our list of for a poll that we're going to be running of the top 2019 shows, and I was just I kept adding to it because there's been so many things that are on the air right now, and it does beg the question: have we reached saturation point? And I mean, I could understand them putting it on the DC Universe app and having it on the streaming service, but the CW is already going to be pretty crowded. We do possibly, the Canary show is going to be a backdoor pilot during the 9th episode of Arrow, and it may or may not get picked up. But if it does get picked up, then that's another slate of shows. So it does reach a point where it's like, okay, we're getting pretty full. But as far as it was, I mean, I liked the trailer. I mean, I thought it visually, it looked interesting. I mean, I will say that. But yeah, like Sarah said, we're old, and maybe it's a younger demographic, can enjoy that show. But I'll like Batwoman. I'll keep an open mind, give it a try. Watch an episode or two. But at the same time, I am not like, oh, I can't wait for this to come out. I like Doom Patrol season 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Doom Patrol. Yeah, I'm all about it. Speaking about mature and elegant and wise superheroes, the Wonder Woman 84 trailer dropped. Also,
yes.
I'm ready for this, guys. I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
The minute I heard the theme music in that trailer, I was like, yes. I am an 80s kid and I am living for it.
Yeah.
The minute I looked into Chris Pine's blue eyes, I was like, yes.
Steve Trevor's back.
And he's wearing a fanny pack. I mean, like, how hot dad can he be?
Just standing there wondering if the garbage can was art.
Yeah.
It was great.
That was a great moment. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right, Veronica. The score, that trailer, New Order, and I was just like, okay, you got me. Just go ahead, just fast forward me to June. I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. I'm ready for the style, because just where they show her in that white jumpsuit, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yes. I cannot wait. And then towards the end with, where she's fighting. Yes, that goal. Oh my God.
Oh, that was amazing.
I'm like, they need to make that a costume for people to buy.
They probably will.
Yeah. Marketing tie-in. It's right here. You better trademark that.
Right.
They put a lot of effort into that. They're going to make bank on that outfit. They're probably going to be a special edition Funko Pop with that outfit on it.
Yep.
They're going to go all in on that. This is their big money bringer. I mean, Granted, Aquaman did good, but for some reason, I don't know how everyone else feels. I feel like Wonder Woman made more of an impact than Aquaman, even if I think it made more money, but I could be wrong about that.
I think Aquaman did better, but the cultural impact, it definitely resonated more than Aquaman did, for sure.
Absolutely.
It's just a movie.
I think with Aquaman, for me, the message that I loved so much was about ocean conservation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why, for me, Aquaman was like I was so hooked on it. But when it comes to Wonder Woman, she's just this powerful female, and she's not being turned into, you know, super aggressive. You know, it's nuts. Even though I like sometimes when the female characters are like that, but when it comes to Wonder Woman, after growing up with watching the Linda Carter Wonder Woman reruns, like that's how I want my Wonder Woman to be, like just very sweet to very nice. But when it comes down to it, like she'll kick your butt, you know?
Right. Right. And I think that has a lot to do with Patty Jenkins directing the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a huge difference than someone like Zack Snyder or another male director behind the scenes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're clearly excited about one of those characters. Oh, man.
You know, I was shocked to see Kristen Wiig. I did not know that she was going to be a supporting character in this movie. I didn't know that like at all, because I didn't follow a lot of the hype when they were casting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw the trailer and I saw her, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, she's
I love her.
Yeah, and I'm glad actually that they did not. I mean, she's going to be Cheetah, and I'm glad that they did not show her costume or whatever. They're keeping that. Hopefully, they'll keep that under wraps as long as they can.
That's who she's gonna be?
Mm-hmm.
Cheetah. Mm-hmm.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, so I did not know that either.
I'm
Wow,
sold.
Will. Wow. Spoiler alert, Will Polk.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Because they didn't show her in her costume. So I'm okay with that, because that's going to be awesome when we get to see it on screen.
Just avoid probably the next few trailers, Veronica, because you know they're going to jump the shark and show it to you, and you're going to be so annoyed at it.
I will.
But I was going to mention the same thing. I'm glad they only showed her a little bit, because I knew that she was going to be in the movie and who she was. I didn't realize, for some reason I had either forgotten or I didn't really realize that Pedro Pascal was in the movie.
I have forgotten that too. I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really shocked to see him too, because like I said, I didn't follow, so I didn't know who was being casted for that. So that's going to be a nice little lineup they got going on.
Yeah, and unlike Mandalorian, he actually will be physically there.
Right.
But they put that stupid wig on him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Didn't they?
We have like trauma with bad wigs at this point. Like I really need to not watch another thing with another bad wig. Like
It's just, I mean,
it's
that
the 80s, okay?
Maybe it's not a wig. Maybe they did that to his hair, and that's why in The Mandalorian he never takes off his helmet.
Yeah. when he's on set.
Yeah. When he's actually there, you know. All right. Well, before we continue down that weird tangent path, we do have a crisis to talk about.
Yes.
It's only been building for a year. And I guess where I want to start, though, is, and Will can vouch for me, for some reason, I had also forgotten that 2 of the episodes was going to air in 2020. I was fully prepared for 5 hours.
You were so ready for it. You just wanted it all like right now. But you're to be forgiven, because again, you're just doing this little thing called moving. So
yeah, and so when I started watching the 3 episodes, I couldn't help but compare it to Elseworlds. And with Elseworlds, that was such a complete crossover that there are definitely some strengths of this 3-episode arc. However, I really liked what they did with Elseworlds in the sense that it felt like one complete story from start to finish, and there was no delays, and you were able to digest it quickly, but it also it was well paced. And with this, I kind of just am thinking to myself, man, there's 2 hours left, and we have to wait a while to get to get closure. And so I don't know how everyone else felt about that.
well, for me,
no, go ahead.
okay. For me, I feel like the first 3 hours there was definitely a bit of a pacing issue.
Mm.
It felt a little bit disjointed. And I feel like definitely because of how much stuff that's supposedly in hour 4 with like the anti-monitor and a lot of background stuff, I feel like that's probably going to be very rushed.
Mm.
Right.
And I don't know how they're going to work that part out story-wise, but I'm hoping that they can give us something cohesive to wrap up what they've already done, because the way the information was crammed in, I feel like they probably could have done a better job.
Yeah.
At least like on the Flash portion.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Arrow did a lot of good lead up, but I feel like on the Flash portion and with, certain characters, for like Pariah on the Flash and other characters on Batwoman that we saw in Elseworlds, that they could have probably threaded some things in there in the season, so that if everybody was watching all the shows, it would have felt more cohesive, because now it's just like a bunch of name dropping stuff in these first 3 hours and the story is not flowing as smoothly.
Yeah, I felt that the most in the third hour. I think the first hour, the Supergirl hour, I thought was, I think it did its part. It set up the universe. I mean, I had just leading up to the events this week. I hadn't read Crisis in years, so I went back, and thanks to the DC app, they had the story on there. So, I think it did a good job of just sort of setting up the universe, establishing what was going on. But the third hour definitely I felt was way overstuffed, and it did feel that there were some critical plot points that could have been expanded on more in that third hour. Really, it probably would have been better to have introduced Ryan Choi in one of the shows earlier in the season. I think you're right, Tasha. That would have been a better place to drop him in instead of like during Crisis, because it took away from the part that suffered the most to me was the Purgatory story.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because
stupid.
Yeah. Well,
we had like this really long speech of Iris like trying to get Ryan Choi to get on board to be their whatever of humanity, or paragon of humanity, and then it's like, Oliver, I'm your brother, I love you, wake up, here's your soul back, let's go. Like, hello. 2 minutes. It was like 2 minutes, and I'm like, really? I think this should take a little bit longer. He lost his soul and he's wandering around this netherworld, and it took 2 seconds? Really? Come on.
Yeah.
Because they set it up very well in the Batwoman hour, and with
the Batwoman hour was the best hour.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I love that hour. I felt like this is on par with Elseworlds, and I love the team up. Kara and Kate work so well together on screen, and I love their dynamic. Everything that they did in that second hour, maybe not the whole purgatory stuff, but still, I really felt like this was a true crossover. And you're right. The first episode, it was all introduction. Like, this is what's going on. Oh my God, Earths are drying, and trying to really an introduction into Crisis. And then the third hour, because they knew that they would have a break in between airing the conclusion, it felt like a bridge. It felt like they had to wrap up some storylines and then also leave you with a cliffhanger for the final 2 hours. And that really annoyed me, but I want to make sure we hear Veronica's thoughts as well.
Well, one of the things that I was noticing, because I watched this with my mother, and for somebody who's read the comics, a lot of it made sense to me, and I knew what was happening, and I was sitting there going, yes, 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 yes. And my poor mother's like, wait, what happened? Who is that? Why did that happen? Where did this person come from? What does that mean? And I realized that when they wrote this, they basically wrote it as, for any comic book lover. But if you're not a comic book lover or a reader, you know, you don't even have just even a little bit of info on comic books, like you're sitting there kind of lost. And so that's why when I was watching like each hour, I'm thinking, oh, you know what, that's going to show up, I bet you, in Batwoman, or that's going to come up in the Legends of Tomorrow, and so in my mind, I'm mapping it all out, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I see how it's going to work. But when you're not a comic book reader, like, this is not going to make sense to you. You're going to feel like you're kind of being strung along, and they're just like pulling you really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's what's happening, and why so many people are kind of like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I have another friend of mine. She's like, can you explain what happened? Can you explain what this meant? Because she really was like, I don't understand anything that's happening. So I really think that they kind of did a disservice to a lot of TV fans rather than comic book fans. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that's why there's so much, missed opportunities for a better arc for each of our characters than what we got. But overall, like, I'm enjoying it. But again, because I know what's happening, and I know who these people are, and I know what's going to happen with them.
We get it, Veronica. You're smart.
No, I'm a dork.
But that's a very good point, and that it really, and like I said, if I hadn't, it's been years since I read that the series, and and I'm glad that I went back and took the time to reread it, because you're right, Veronica, because it's fresh in my mind again. I am able to put A to B to C together a lot better, and also seeing things like, for example, Tasha calling it with Oliver become a Spectre.
Yeah.
Because obviously in the comic, of course, Jim Corrigan does have a very key role, but again, I also see how they're going to maybe work in Oliver's ending as with him becoming Spectre, and Sarah reaching back to Elseworlds and the end of season 7 for Arrow, where Felicity goes off with the Monitor.
Right.
This is a little quick theory, Power Hill. I think Oliver's going to serve the role that Spectre played in Crisis, and then at the end of Arrow, he's not going to be Spectre again. I think this is be the way they'll introduce Hal Jordan into the Arrowverse.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, if they do that, like, I'm all for it. I'm not a huge fan of like the whole Lazarus Pit thing. Like, I've never been a fan of that whole storyline, but it's like I kept telling a friend of mine, I was like, look, at this point, I really don't care how they bring Oliver back. It's the fact that they're bringing him back. I'm okay with it. I'll take it.
Yeah, definitely not picky. Definitely not picky. For me, it was just like, I know he's end the show alive. That's all I care about. Let's just get there. But I agree that the way that storyline is handled, like, I was out of town over the week, like last week, and I came back to, people adding me on Twitter, like, what is happening? Somebody please explain to me what is happening. I don't understand what is going on. And I'm like, that's a failing of writing, because
Yes.
it really shouldn't be just comic book fans like us who know what's happening. And for me, when you have this amount of shows and this amount of episodes leading into the events, they should have definitely done a better job. Like, I don't feel like hour 4 is when we should just be finding out the backstory of the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor.
Yeah.
We should have seen that. We should have seen flashbacks of Harbinger and the Monitor and how they met. They had time all season to give us these moments. Yeah. And the fact that now everybody's like, okay, well, I mean, calling Oliver was going to be Spectre. It was like, oh, well, duh, because all right, we know the comic, but everybody else is really so severely confused about what is happening and where this story is going. And they have 2 hours and they're trying to figure out in their head, how can you end something like this in 2 hours when everyone is dead? Everyone is dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oliver
Yeah.
is dead. His body is gone.
Yeah.
How are you going to fix this
Yeah.
when they're out in the netherverse? Like, what? So,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is a big
I
problem.
mean, since the beginning of Arrow this season, and every time Lila would pop up, I kept waiting for them to talk about this,
Mhm.
to bring it up, and it never got mentioned. And I kept thinking, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's not going to be made into Harbinger. Maybe my theory is just not going to pan out. But then it was like when they showed her recently, walking into the alley to meet him, then I was like, okay, I was like, that's a little late, but all right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that I did enjoy is kind of, I don't know, seeing I don't know, I guess the way that Oliver is kind of like, each episode, little by little, he's been reflecting on things.
Mhm.
And they're kind of were leading up to all this. So when he died in the first hour, I was like, wow, okay, so yeah, that's what was going to happen. All right.
For
Yeah.
me, the Lila thing, I was good with 802 when they did like her backstory and she told, gave the hint of a story that the Monitor may have saved her. And then you see her meet him at the end of the episode. But my biggest issue with the season so far really has been like episode 6, where they did that loop. And I feel like that episode, especially since Lila was in that loop, would have been a good time for them to actually give her Harbinger backstory.
Yes.
Before they led into her actually being the weapon and becoming the Harbinger, because without doing that, it's just this, it's an info dump. And for people who aren't comic fans, that's just the info dump of all this information they're expected to remember, to understand. So we're really being told, like, okay, every mission Oliver has had was to get the parts, to create a weapon, to create a weapon that would activate Lila as Harbinger. But without that comics knowledge to be like, okay, well, she's Harbinger. What does she do?
Yeah.
What's her purpose?
Yeah, exactly. They really failed the TV fans. I mean, and let's face it, there's a lot of fans out there that are following the comics now because of the show.
Yes.
And that's such a bad thing. I mean, this is the last season of Arrow.
And speaking of comics, I know they are going to do a comic tie-in to this. I think it was going to be set in between hours 1 and 2, where and actually Felicity's going to show up. Wally West is going to be in the comic. I think it drops. I think it dropped either yesterday or next week in Walmart. But it's a special edition, written by both Matt Guggenheim and Marv Wolfman, who was obviously the original scribe. So hopefully that will help bridge some of these things. But Sarah, one of the things that you brought up Elseworlds and how complete a crossover event it was, and one of the things we talked about last year when we were teased that Crisis was coming was whether or not, and hearing Tasha and Veronica's discussion right now, looking back at the 8 episodes, one of the things we talked about was whether or not they would do, spread out the Crisis over the course of the season, and obviously they didn't. But I think listening to you guys talk, it would have been, especially on Flash and Arrow, because these two characters, well, all the characters, but I mean, really Arrow being at its ending, Flash because way back in season 1 with the headline Flash disappears in Crisis, those are going to be 2 focal points in the series. And then of course Supergirl, with the deal that Oliver made with the Monitor, and knowing that Kara also dies in Crisis in the comics. Those are 3 key characters that they really, Supergirl, I don't know what the hell they're doing this season. I mean, I've just pretty much given up on that show. But they really could have, as you guys said, used those earlier episodes to really lay the foundation for Crisis, so that you don't have to exactly follow the lines of the comics, which in this they are really synthesizing the 12 books into like 5 episodes, and there's a lot of there is a lot of information that you have to synthesize there.
Yeah, but don't promise something and fail to deliver. They said they've had a year. Okay, they knew that they were going to build up to this, and so they have had plenty of time to map it all out and make it work. And I think that what you bring up is, you mentioned how we've also had a year to prepare ourselves for Crisis, and for Oliver and Barry to prepare themselves to Crisis. And yet I felt like watching these first 3 episodes, they were minor characters. This wasn't about them, really. I think that we saw a lot more of the story told through Harbinger. We saw a lot of the story told through Kara, and a lot told through Kate Kane. I mean, those 3 characters, I don't know what kind of deal the actress who plays Lila made, like when she first joined the show and said, well, when you guys do Crisis, I want a main storyline.
Harbinger, but that's comic accurate. I mean, Harbinger and Pariah.
Right, and I'm not trying to say like it's stupid or anything. I was going a different route with it, but anyway, so it's also interesting, I guess. What about Nash and this whole Parasite deal? Because
yeah, that, oh my God, they failed on that so hard.
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, yes. I knew what was happening, but my mom goes, "Who is this doofus?" And I just couldn't stop laughing. She's like, "Why is he wearing that?"
So many things were wrong with his appearance, his delivery of his lines in the middle of Oliver dying. It was just, all of it was not good. And I'm like, you introduced Nash before the Crisis. You could have just introduced Pariah before the Crisis. Right around the same time you destroyed Earth 2, because he was supposed to be following destruction. So they could have introduced him, destroyed Earth 2, and then introduced him on Flash at the same time, rather than having him say, "Oh, I'm here to watch bad things happen," over Oliver dying. Like, that was so distracting from the fact that Mia is there crying her eyes out over her dead dad. Like, it's like, this whole scene is just not right.
Yeah. Oh, that goes back to our earlier point, because I realized that Nash was going to be, I think even on one of our earlier shows, or maybe offline with Sarah, I said Pariah. Nash is going to be Pariah,
right?
And so that was, there were early on in the Flash season 6 where they were spinning their wheels on stories like Nash going off doing things with Allegra and other characters and stuff, and I'm just like, you're right, Tasha. Whenever Earth 2 was destroyed, that would have been a perfect point in the storyline to have him go down in that basement, if that was the way they're going to have him become, to become Pariah. That would have been the moment to do it, because that would have been like a good way to build up to the Crisis with some of these secondary characters.
Yeah. I mean, was it just me, or did he repeat the same line throughout the entire 3 episodes?
Yep. Yeah.
I was just like, we get it.
From him saying it to who said it in episode 3? Was it Barry? "Oh, that's why you're here, to watch a catastrophe happen." And I was like, seriously, again with this line about
right? It's like, we get it. It's like anytime, I think before, Will, we were talking about how heading into these seasons, anytime a character would say Crisis, my ears would suddenly go off, and I'm like, we know it's coming. You don't have to stop and wink at the camera for us. We get it. Something else, though, that I want to talk to you all about is to get your thoughts on the the long anticipated cameos. I mean, leading up to this event, there was a lot of names drops, characters coming back, and we got a lot of those in the first few episodes, even in the first few minutes. My personal favorite cameo was the Lucifer one, because I felt as if they utilized that time with that character the most effectively, to where it helped move things along, and it was also, he actually got to engage with the characters, unlike some of the other cameos that occurred.
Yeah.
You know what? Again, because I love all the comics, and I watched all the old, Batman shows when I was a kid, and I watched the cartoons. So I was totally like, I was loving it, even if they were being killed off in the beginning. And I got to see Huntress, I was like, yeah, cool. It was fun. I mean, I don't know if they were trying to go for anything profound, but for me, it was just a fun way to pay homage to, these characters that brought this world to life for me as a kid. Mm-hmm. So, but I think the thing about Lucifer, because see, I don't even watch that show, but I was really kind of excited to see him on, because I knew that he was part of the DC world, and so it was really cool to be able to see him interact with Constantine, who happens to be one of my favorites. So I was cool with that too. I liked it a lot. But as far as all the other ones, they were just fun. I wasn't trying to look at them as some sort of major plot point or anything. I just figured, they were going to have fun with it, and that's exactly what they did.
Tasha?
Yeah, for me, definitely the Lucifer one. I am a fan of the show. I do watch it.
Yeah.
It's one of my binge shows, so that was a lot of fun. And of course, his whole, hard pass, I'm not going to be in it. Yeah, right. Everybody knew that he was totally going to be in it. And then Huntress was definitely another fave, because I did watch that show. I've seen all the episodes, so that was one that I was actually looking forward to. And I did actually appreciate that, because they did this is world number 666. This is this world. It expanded the universe, and it gave you a perspective, each of these places and all of these shows that you've seen or moments that you've seen, they're all being destroyed. So it helps, for me, it helps wrap out that story and expand the story from that perspective.
Right. Well, even Stakes. I mean, a lot of us grew up with those shows and characters, and if their world is gone, that story is done and over with, and some of the shows are still going. Another cameo that stuck out to me was, of course, Tom Welling.
Yeah.
Superman.
Yeah, that, I think for me, I wasn't a big Smallville fan, but I did watch it some. For me, it was the cameos. It's a toss up between that one and Kevin Conroy as a Kingdom Come Bruce Wayne, and also Brandon Routh as, I don't know if it's a cameo, but I just gotta say his Kingdom Come Superman was like the Superman sequel that he should have gotten years ago.
Absolutely.
He just killed it. I was just like, Superman Returns is it definitely had its problems with the script, and the story was just a muddled mess, but I always liked him as Superman, and I'm glad he got a second chance to do that, to play Superman again. Tom Welling, like you said, I think that was totally consistent with the sort of Smallville theme. It was no surprise when he said, "I renounce my powers." I was like, okay, yeah, that makes total sense.
It made sense. I was surprised by it, because I wasn't going into it thinking that would be the twist, but I like that they did it, because there's a humanity to that I appreciated, and a reminder that some of these characters, they don't want the power, or they don't need it, and they choose to give it up.
Yeah, and also just his very, I think it was a nice hat tip to his very conflicted view towards his time on that show, and how it's impacted his career. So I think it was, it was nice ending closing chapters. Another closed chapter was I loved what they did with John Wesley Shipp and Flash 90.
Yes.
With the drop there, just with him and Tina, music, Danny Elfman theme from that was the show that introduced me to the Flash and got me hooked on the character. So for me, I got a lump in my throat seeing when he switched out with R. Barry to be the one that would actually be the one who would stop the antimatter cannon, and that was just a super nice touch, especially given that show was just canceled after the first one season and didn't have a finale. So, that to me that was like the probably one of the things that definitely sticks out to me in the crossover.
Definitely, I was so like. The whole hand to mouth thing when they showed that footage, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't seen that since the show ended.
Yeah, I definitely took a breath on that one, and I feel like it was a great ending for his story.
Mm-hmm.
My issue with it is our current Flash story. Because for me, when you spend an entire season or first half of the season building up to the fact that this Barry is supposed to die, to make it another Barry who dies, it just felt like, seriously? What was the point?
Right. Yeah.
And that, for me, I was just like, Like, I love that it ended the arc of the old Flash, but it felt like it undercut our current Flash and what. So it's like, okay, well, he's a paragon of love, and he was supposed to die to save everybody, but nope. And I'm like, okay, well, I knew that when they said the Flash must die, that somebody was going to take his powers. Like, I knew it. I've tweeted it. I said it.
Yeah.
But I was still kind of hoping that there would actually be some follow through on this plot point that's just been going for the last how many episodes.
Since the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
Like, jeez. No, I see, and I've been saying it all season, that I've kind of checked out of the Flash for that very reason, because I felt as if every episode revolved around him and others getting not over, but reconciling their feelings with the upcoming sacrifice. And I'm just like, we know he's gonna live. I don't buy into any of this. It's pointless. There's no stakes. So the whole switch out, I was like, okay. So, and now we're probably going to create a whole new universe and other things are going to happen. I don't really know, but I was just like, whatever. So, I guess I was a pessimistic about it, which is funny because when you guys were talking before about Oliver's death in the first episode, that caught me off as surprise because I'm just so used to going into these crossovers and him having a huge story arc in it, that the way he was utilized throughout these first 3 hours really, it wasn't that I was confused. I was just like, where's Oliver? Why can't we spend time with him than some of these other people?
Yeah. As a diehard Arrow fan, that's pretty much my mood.
Yeah.
Well, see, I
feel like he had great moments, but they were so spaced out. And because I have like an issue with the pacing, especially in hour 3, it's like, okay, we're heading off to find Oliver, and then they have Oliver gets his soul back in 2 seconds, and then this big moment of him becoming the Spectre. And I guess you guys follow me, so you know I've been ranting about this like a crazy person for months, that he was going to become the Spectre. And it's like, ooh, glowing eyes, poof, done. I was like, what? Seriously?
Yeah.
This is all we're getting. And then they disappear from the scene. And even when the ship gets wiped out and his body that Sarah was supposed to be guarding is now gone, we don't even see that. Like, there are people on the ship who died and we didn't even see it. I was like, what is happening? Where is Oliver? What?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. When they did that whole switch, like where Harbinger defeats monitor, and they all start to dissipate, and Pariah sends them into the vanishing point. And then all of a sudden we get like, I was sitting there kind of going, wait a second, did we miss something? I kept feeling like I was missing something there.
Yes.
But when I look back, I was like, nope, I'm not. This is exactly how it went.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's okay. Like it was okay. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll take it. And then all of a sudden, freaking Lex Luthor kills Superman. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That part right there really bothered me, because I really wanted to see Brandon last through the entire crisis.
Yeah.
And be able to Superman go back to, wherever, and I'm gonna start anew, and they kill him.
Yeah.
John Mayer had to have a moment, and he stuck out to me as another person where I'm like, I get why you're here, but he was so much more menacing in the previous season of Supergirl than he was these entire 3 episodes.
He had the great, yeah. He was definitely not as menacing, but he definitely the arrogance definitely came through, especially when he was bouncing from Earth to Earth trying to kill the Superman. So I did like that, and Lex does have a role in the Crisis, but I hated it was at the expense of Superman.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Kingdom Come, Superman.
And
Yeah,
for me,
yeah,
that was also a little bit confusing, because when Lex shows up and he unfolds the paper, the paragon that he X'd out basically was the arrow symbol.
Mm.
There were 7 paragons, and the one that he X'd out and replaced with his name was the arrow symbol. I'm like, but you didn't kill Oliver. Oliver isn't even a paragon. He's the Spectre. You killed Superman. So why? What's happening here? That just made it even more confusing for me.
I didn't even notice the symbol. Oh my god, I'm going to go back and look.
I'm going to have to go back and look at that too. I missed that.
Because I sat there and I looked at the symbols and I was like, oh, because when I first saw them, I thought, oh, it's going to be a mix of old, the old heroes that were going to have cameos and the new ones. And then I said, maybe it's really all the old heroes and Oliver. But I was just like, there's an arrow symbol, so Oliver's a paragon. And then they're like, nope, he's not even a paragon. It's all these other random people. And I'm like, all right. And then we get to this point, and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to X out the arrow symbol, and I'm going to be a paragon, and I'm going to kill Superman. And I'm like, but this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I'm surprised Mia wasn't one, and they didn't go that route, because she also had an odd part to play. But I want to make sure we get to talking about Will's favorite show, Black Lightning, and
Yay.
How Jefferson finally got to appear in a crossover. I really liked how they integrated him. I like his whole dynamic with Barry. Barry, for me, the first few hours, he was kind of pushed aside, and then it took until they figured out what was happening with Flash from Earth 90, and then Jefferson appearing, and then where I felt like he finally had more to do and also more people to interact with, and Jefferson was a good substitute for the dynamic between Oliver and Barry that as viewers we come to expect with crossovers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. And before we even, so I call the Black Lightning, I guess, chapter 2.5, because it really, I tweeted out to folks, when folks were like, should I watch Black Lightning this week? I'm like, definitely, because that they did a good job of integrating the current storyline that they've had this season into Crisis using Jennifer. Yeah. And Jennifer basically figuring out the multiverse when she encountered Earth 1 Jen and Earth 2 Jen, Jinn, who was a complete cold-hearted badass. But I mean, but it was a good way they did it, because it's been this whole arc of basically you had the extremes of Jennifer's personality, and they've been vague about Black Lightning's Earth. I know on the screen after they said he showed up, they showed Earth 73, but that's a little off because the comic didn't come around, I think, until 75 or 76. So I don't know which Earth our Black Lightning's from, but I think him losing his family and also, to your point, Sarah, about the pairing, it gave what happened in Hour 3 more depth by having it set up in the episode of Black Lightning this week. And it's still, I think you could, for most viewers, if you don't watch the show, that scene probably still works on some level, but knowing Jefferson's backstory and stuff, when he had that scene with Barry, it felt deeper to me than it would have if you hadn't watched the episode of Black Lightning this week. So I feel like it's the unnamed chapter in the book.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed so much that episode of Black Lightning because when, instead of just being like at the very end, like, oh, red skies, oh, poof, we all disappear, they actually incorporate Jennifer's powers and how she's still trying to navigate those powers. And it worked so well. And I was so caught up in that story that come the actual time of for, Crisis to happen and they're all supposed to just disappear with the antimatter. I almost forgot that we were going into Crisis with that show too. It told the story so well. And I've really loved Jennifer's story because she's just torn between so many things going on in her life. And I don't know why I just kind of connect with her so much. So I was so caught up in it that I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Jefferson's going to be in Crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really did set it up. And I think the other thing too, some of the things that happen in that hour, I think are going to impact whenever we get in parts 4 and 5 of Crisis, especially when they go back to the dawn of time in episode 4, I would think, part 4 of Crisis. And when they reverse all this and we get our streamlined Arrowverse, because the one Jen that was the calm Jen
right,
was Earth 1, and so whenever all this is reversed, Jefferson's going to end up on Earth 1, and I think that Jefferson and that is on Earth 1 and Black Lightning met his demise because he doesn't have his powers because of something that Nissa did. So basically protect the metas in Freeland. So I'm thinking probably what could happen is just a theory spiral. This Jefferson will adopt that new family from Earth 1.
Interesting. Okay. Another thing I wanted to talk about is probably my biggest annoyance of the 3 hours is I really need to understand what the timeline of Batwoman is, because we met her in Elseworlds.
Yes,
and it was explained to me that in Batwoman, the first half of the season, it's set before Elseworlds.
Correct.
Because she isn't in her costume or anything. So why did they make reference to the most recent episode of Batwoman? And it just felt weird to me. I felt like it was out of order, and I'm waiting for you to cut me off and tell me that I'm wrong and why, Will.
Yeah, I think it was episode 3 or 4 of Batwoman this season that caught them up to the Elseworlds timeline and present day timeline.
Okay.
So you're right. You're correct. The first few episodes were pre Elseworlds, and then we got caught up to Elseworlds, and then what we've been seeing the last few weeks is running concurrent with everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They still could have done a better job with that whole explanation. Just saying.
They could have, but
There's a lot they could have done.
yeah,
Well,
but you're right. But the Batwoman episode, to me, as we said, I think you said earlier, it was definitely the best hour of the three, as far as the Prime Crisis shows. And we should definitely not. We can't, like, speaking of Batwoman, her interaction with Bruce and how that fed into her later interactions with Kara.
Yes.
We can't let the time go without talking about that. I thought that the steel line, if you're hero long enough, you become the villain. I think is how it goes. That was clearly our Kingdom Come Bruce, and just how broken he is, and the fact that he didn't have that parental influence and everything, and just how he just became so dark. But
like, he was slaughtering people and keeping trophies.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, what? I was like, okay. Yeah, I was really caught up in how Kate was handling Kara and her, like, weird sort of like nervous breakdown over, like, oh my God, like, Argo's gone, my mother's gone, my people are gone. And it was like all she could think about. And I was like, wait, can you hold off on that freak out for a minute? Because, the universe is about to end. And so we got to focus on all these other people. But she was, like, so caught up in that. And I really appreciated the way that they had Kate kind of, like, put her foot down, instead of, like, kind of, patting her head and it's going to be okay. Kate really took on that kind of role of, like, no, this is how it's going to be. This is why you have to not do it. And she was ready to do whatever it took to continue their mission in protecting or trying to protect what's left.
Right.
By carrying the kryptonite in her hand, in her suit, her pocket suit, whatever. I don't know. But
her lead belt.
Yeah, there you go. And I was like, so I really appreciated that so much, because in the end, it was like, if you think of how Alex usually works with Kara, like when Kara starts to have one of her little meltdowns, like Alex goes in and she puts her foot down, and then Kara's like, okay, yeah, you're right. So it kind of, like, felt that way, and I appreciated that whole, like, little interaction they had going. But it did really bother me that Kara just kept going on and on about the Book of Destiny and wanting to bring back the other Earths or bring back Argo. And I was just like, come on, you're supposed to be the paragon of hope. Like, come on, let's hope that we can save the rest of the multiverse before we try to figure out what we're going to do to bring the rest of it back.
Yeah.
Right.
I got it, but I got that, but I also felt like part of it was maybe a little bit of guilt. Because she did say, like, Oliver flat out said, like, I'm dying for the two of you. And she said to Sarah, like, he shouldn't have done that. And Sarah was like, no, he didn't. He died for you guys, and he also saved 1 billion people. Like, so I think in part, it's like, okay, he died for me to be here. I need to find a way to make that sacrifice worthwhile, and I need to save all of these people. So her obsession, like, I already lost my mom. I'm supposed to be the paragon of hope. I need to find a way to fix this. I need to bring it all back, because all these sacrifices just can't be for nothing.
Right.
Right.
So she was kind of spiraling, but I got where her head was at with it.
Right. I actually think it would have been odd if she didn't have any reaction to all of that loss, because if we don't count Laurel, which I'm assuming we are not, as usual, she's one of the only heroes who really loses their Earth in that sense, and then is put on this path. Everyone else, their loved ones and worlds are still functioning, so they're in protective mode, but she's already lost And so
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
how are you supposed to interact with everyone and help them with the defense when you've already lost the game? I don't know, but I also it just is a cool dynamic because
Mhm.
Kate's also the new kid here. This is her. Yes, she appeared in Elseworlds, but she had a minimal part, and in this one, she really did a lot of heavy lifting, and she did not stick out to me. It felt like she's been there before a few times and a lot longer. So I was really impressed by the writing and the dynamic, and I like the twists. I like how there's some of the same dynamic we get with Barry and Oliver,
Hmm.
the hope and it versus the pessimism, but they also do little twists. Like I think if Barry was Superman and Oliver was Batman, and they had this arc, I don't think Oliver would have given over the kryptonite at the end of it like Kate did.
You're right.
Nope.
He
Yeah.
wouldn't have. He would not have.
Oh, not a chance.
He did make
No.
a kryptonite arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're not wrong there, my friend. Yeah, that definitely would have happened. Yeah.
Or anything else anyone who wants to say about Crisis, at least the first 3 hours of it?
I would love to hear folks' thoughts as far as what we're going to get in hours 4 and 5.
An ending.
I know, well, obviously that,
Yeah.
but
Well, you know, if we can get like Green Lantern, you know, with Diggle, I think that's really all I really want, to be honest with you. Like, you know, because see, for me, like, I know Arrow's ending, and I am, you know, 100% that Oliver's gonna be just fine, and everybody else is gonna be just fine. I just want Green Lantern. And that's like, because going into Crisis, like, I really didn't pay attention to every little detail, because I knew that either I was not going to be happy or I was going to be happy or whatever. And I just wanted to watch this and just enjoy it without criticism, because otherwise I have these high expectations and then I would be really disappointed. So far, I'm enjoying it.
Mhm.
Because I am a comic book lover at heart, and I do enjoy all the little, you know, Easter eggs that have been dropped, and all the little, you know, cameos of all these people, and I love it all. I just, in the end, my big hope is for Green Lantern. And that's really the biggest thing that I want, because I'm at a point now where I just want it to come to that, and that's it. And I know it's really ridiculous for being an Arrow fan, but I am one of those very few people out there that believes in a hero's death. I believe in having a hero die in a very courageous, brave way.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then somebody who loved him just as much, who picks up the mantle and says, I'm going to make them happy. And so I'd be okay if Oliver did die, then I would be okay with that. But I would love it if he came back, you know, like a whole person and not just like a ghostly spirit.
So I'm pretty much right there with you. For me, into Crisis, my expectations weren't very high, because I'm not really going into Crisis as a Supergirl fan or as a Flash fan. I'm an Arrow fan. So my focus was pretty much them finishing out Oliver's story well, and Easter eggs. Like, that's pretty much what I'm here for. That's it. That's all I really need. And definitely dig as Green Lantern. I think I've ranted about this every other day for the last year and a half. That's all I want.
Yeah, ever since they introduced the Stewart, General Stewart. Yeah.
Yes.
That's like, That's my constant. I'm like, just give me what I want, and I get like these bloggers that keep hinting that there are things happening with this, and they just won't give me what I want. It's very, very, very annoying. I'm like, hurry up already.
It's like, for crying out loud, he has the green glow in his helmet.
The helmet, the new suit with the extra green in it. His dad's Stewart. Like, it's right there. Just give it to me. And I'm like, and as my spec, I've been saying, I'm like, they have Kevin Smith. He's right there. His stupid story's right there. Just give me Diggs' Green Lantern and Oliver's Arrow, because that's what they're supposed to do. And let's just wrap this story. That's all I want. That's all I want.
Yeah, I think that right now, going into the final 2 episodes of Crisis, and more importantly, the final episode of Arrow, it's just about closure. I don't know if I want anything. I haven't really been on the Crisis bandwagon this past year because I think it's stupid to announce something so far in advance. I think it's really lame how we've had this buildup and enough time to get overly high expectations and to be, I think, genuinely disappointed in the overall product because there's so much hype around it. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I'm glad that we're finally through the halfway point, because I don't know how much more I could do with just speculating about what it would be like. And I need them to wrap it up. I need to know what happens to Barry. I need to know what happens to Oliver. Barry is really, I'm worried about, because I'm worried about what post-crisis Flash looks like. You know? What are they going to do for the second half of the season, considering everything they built around during the first half, arguably even including blood work, really revolved around Crisis? Like, who is this character these days? And especially, he just lost another father figure. What does that mean? What's going on with him and Iris, who has always been really cool about her husband dying, in my opinion.
Right?
So I really, it's not that I'm expecting anything from Crisis. I'm really actually more curious about what post-Crisis looks like for these heroes.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. And picking up on that point, Sarah, as far as what post-Crisis looks like, because I mean, obviously they're going to have to, the whole purpose of Crisis originally was to streamline the DC universe, and so this is a television way of streamlining all these shows into one universe. And so so for me, overall, I've enjoyed the crossover. I tried, like you, I tried to keep the government expectations going into it, so I could just sit back and enjoy it as a fan, and I have. Mm-hmm. I really have. I can't sit here and say I haven't. I really have enjoyed the series up to this point. I think just looking at the teaser, a lot of people are making a lot of at least on the Flash side of the house, which I'm the Flash fan here. The trailer for part 4 has a glimpse of Reverse Flash that people are like, going back to the headline again. And of course, Oliver saying, Barry, you're in the Speed Force. So of course I'm curious, like, okay, how are they going to basically bring everything back? Because that did happen in the comic. And will our Paragons be the only, will they be the only ones who realize what went on? And will all of the other folks not have memories of it, or will they have memories of it? So those are some of the things I'm looking for. To your point, Sarah, as far as what the post-crisis world and post-crisis Arrowverse looks like, because and we'll get some more fan service, I'm sure. Maybe we'll finally get the Green Lantern, and maybe we'll get some other awesome cameos. Love it. Somebody from Krypton showed up or something. Probably. I know it's not going to be Segel, but yeah. I mean, that's moving forward. That's what I am looking at. I guess, like you said, Tasha, part 4 will probably wrap up a lot of things, because part 5 really, I think, is sort of serves as a kickoff for Legends of Tomorrow. So I guess that'll be that'll start answering some of our questions, what the post-Crisis Arrowverse looks like.
Oh man, I would love it if we got Walter. Like Krypton, I was like, oh, come on, like just bring back Walter.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So great. And as far as like people remembering, I have said it like before, but I really want Mia and William to remember.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be really bummed if they don't, because I feel like a huge portion, like last season, was their time with their mom in the future and her teaching them in her own way for them to be heroes. And this season has been their dad teaching them how to be heroes. So if they, I'm cool with, I can accept them changing bits of the future to give them a better future, but I want them to actually remember this time that they had with him.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Because, I think it has been confirmed that the show is going to be in 2040. So
yeah.
All right. So let's wrap it up before we get too caught up. We could probably go another few hours talking about post-crisis speculation. Save that for another day. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will M. Polk. That's WILLMPOLK.
And Veronica, where can our listeners find you?
You all can find me on Twitter at NerdyChicana, NERDYXICANA.
And Tasha, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Hindsight20, HINDSITE20.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Spotify. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.